Okay, so let's work on our album cover. So the first thing I want to talk about is chipboard. There is medium weight chipboard, which is a lot stiffer, a lot heavier, and then there's lightweight chipboard. Lightweight chipboard bends really easily. And then I know there are people that use cereal boxes. I wouldn't recommend it. It's lighter even than the lightweight chipboard. It does not hold up as well. It's fine for some other craft projects. To make an album, I would not recommend it. We are going to use the medium weight chipboard today. The lightweight chipboard you can use in place if that's what you have. It's easier to cut, that's for sure, but we are going to use the medium weight chipboard. So I'm not going to use my, and I'm going to turn this upside down and I'll tell you why. So when I'm lining up paper, chipboard, cardstock, whatever it is to cut, and it takes some getting used to, I have found when I have my trimmer upside down, I'm able to make sure I fully have pulled whatever I'm cutting down to the bottom, and I don't have to worry about, you know, looking at it where I'm looking across and I think it's all the way up there and it's not, and ending up with weird cuts. That's why. So just so you're not going, why is she working with it upside down? Anyway, so I'm not going to use my big trimmer that I normally use for chipboard. I'm going to show you how to do it with a normal trimmer. So I've got, this is an older blade for my Fiskars trimmer. This is a newer blade. I always keep an older one marked so I know it's older around, simply for cutting chipboard. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut this to 7.5 inches high. And it's not going to cut all the way through in the first try, but we have a way around that. You can either flip it over, which is what I'm going to do on this one. Go back to 7.5 inches and go back through, and that'll cut it off. That works perfectly. The other thing you can do, and I'll show you when we go to cut our two cover pieces, which these are going to be 5.5, is I'll cut it like that and get that mark in there. And then I'll take a craft knife, which I've apparently misplaced, and all I have to do is run it down in that little groove I've created with the blade on the trimmer, and it cuts it out just fine. Okay, so those are your two options. Either one works just beautifully. And then we're going to say 5.5 again, and I'm going to do the exact same thing again, that I'm just going to run my knife right down in that groove I created. Sometimes it takes a couple passes. Okay, this piece you can hang on to or throw away, it's up to you. We also need our spine piece. So I'm going to take this leftover piece, I'm going to cut it to 7.5 again. And rather than, you know, pull it out and trim it, we're going to wait just a second, and we're going to cut this at 1.5. Because then I can just take this, run it in that little groove, and be careful because you can pop up out of your little groove there if you're not paying attention. There we go. All right, so there's our spine piece. I know we've got Tiffany on the Country Craft Creations design team uses these to make tags, so she always hangs on to her chipboard scraps. That's always an option too. It's not something I do, but it is an option. Okay, so we have our spine and our front and back cover. Okay, first thing we want to do is we want to cover all three of these pieces on one side with score tape. Okay, so I'm going to take out my chipboard blade. I'm going to put my normal blade back in. I'm going to take my score tape sheet, and we need this to be 7.5 high by 5.5 wide. Okay, so that's going to cover those two pieces. It's not going to quite cover this one, but we'll supplement it with some other score tape, so it's just fine. Okay, move this for just a minute. Okay, so we want one side of this completely covered with the score tape. The easiest way to do this, you're just going to peel a corner back, fold this down. You can do it by just running a bunch of strips of your score tape on your chipboard. I've done that in a pinch. It doesn't hurt. This obviously is a little bit faster. Okay, so I'm folding that back in one corner, and I'm going to line this up in the bottom corner, push it down, and then I'm very slowly going to peel this back as I push my tape down onto my cardstock chipboard. And I'm slightly off here, so either I cut this wrong, no, I cut that wrong, slightly longer. So I've got a little bit hanging off the edge, which we don't want, so I'm just going to take my craft knife again and just trim that off. Okay, there's one piece. We're going to do the same thing on our second piece. Okay. And again, we don't have anything hanging off there. We're good. And then we're going to do the exact same thing with our spine. So I'm going to pull that back part way. I'll line it up. And clearly I was slightly crooked, but you know what? It's okay. I'm going to grab my 3/8 inch score tape and go down this other side. Okay. All right. So those are ready to go. We're going to set these aside and we're going to cut our cardstock next. Okay, so I have here gray artisan cardstock from Country Craft Creations. One thing when making mini albums, cardstock quality matters, okay? You don't want your hinges and your pages tearing. You don't want your paper cracking when you go to wrap it on your chipboard. And this paper is phenomenal. That being said, it is on a little bit pricey, but if you really get into this and you start making lots of albums, you're going to want good paper. Okay. So, to wrap our chipboard, so our cover piece here is 5.5 by 7.5. Okay. We need 1 inch on each side. So if this is 5.5 by 7.5, our cardstock needs to be 7.5 by 9.5. So regardless of what size your album cover is going to be, you're going to add 2 inches to the width, 2 inches to the length, and that's the size you're going to cut your cardstock. Super easy. Nothing complicated. You're not having to, you know, do a lot of math here. Very, very simple. So we're going to go 7.5 by 9.5. I'm going to do it again. So 7.5, 9.5. Okay. And that's the piece, the 2 pieces that we'll use to wrap our covers. Okay. To wrap the spine is slightly different. So to wrap our spine piece, our spine is 1.5 by 7.5. We want 1 extra inch on the top and the bottom. So you're going to add 2 inches to the height. For the width, you're going to add 3 inches because we want 1.5 inches on each side. So this is 1.5. So we'll cut 4.5, 7.5 this way. So 9.5. And I think one of my cutoffs from, and it does, from my earlier is 4.5. So I just need to cut this to 9.5. And then I'll have my measurements around my edges. Okay. Now this is the first time the scoreboard's going to come in. So I have spacers to do this with. The spacers are sold at Country Craft Creations, and they come with 2 1-inch spacers and 1 1.5-inch spacer. Because what you would use these for if you got the spacers, so like for a spine, your 1 inch is going to go at the top, your 1.5 will go on the side, and then your chipboard goes down right there. So then it's perfectly positioned to wrap your chipboard. However, if you're new to this, you're not going to have spacers. You can cut 1 inch and 1.5-inch spacers out of extra chipboard. That works just fine. Or you can, which I think this time I will actually use their little stylus. You can lightly score your 1.5. And then 1 inch. Okay, I'm not doing those really heavy. This scoreboard is like sticky for some reason. It's like really staticky. I don't know why. Weird. Okay, so you can see just vaguely where I have those score lines. And you're just going to use those to line up your chipboard. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the backing off of my score tape. My nails are not cooperating. I usually have a little tool I use for this, but that's okay. All right, so the spine is small enough. I did go ahead and take all of the score tape off. We won't do it quite like that when we do the covers, okay? So I'm going to turn this so I can see, and I'm going to line it up along that 1.5-inch score line and up there, okay? And push it down and burnish. So this is ready to wrap, okay? It's literally that simple. So I would do the same thing on here if I didn't have the spacer. So if you've gone ahead and cut 1-inch spacers out of chipboard scraps, which is what we were all using on this method at first until she got these made out of acrylic. It just is so fast to put these down. But like I said, you know, you've got options. So on this one, I'm going to peel back just a corner, just like when we put the score tape on the chipboard, okay? And I'm going to, I should have done it from the other corner because clearly I am backwards here, okay? And I'm going to put that down in that corner, okay? And then I can just reach under here and do the same thing where I'm just going to pull that out to lay it down, okay? So there's your second piece. You're going to do the same process on this one, and this one I'll do our little scoring trick on this one. Okay. And again, I'm just going to pull back one little corner here, maybe. There we go. And half of this video I'm going to have different nails because I've got to go get them done tomorrow. Okay, so again, I'm just lining it up on this side here. And then up at the top, pushing that corner down. And then I can just reach under here and pull that backing out and put it down. Okay, so there you go. So our pieces are prepped to make our cover. Okay, next what you're going to do is you're going to take your chipboard, hold it just like this, use the chipboard in your table and just fold this over. Okay, take your bone folder and crease off the edges of the chipboard. Okay, turn it again and do it again. Okay, then you're going to do the same thing on the sides. Okay, like so. Okay, then I'm going to take my scissors and we are going to miter our corners. Two ways you can do this. You can go in here and you can cut on our two little fold lines that we created by folding that cardstock around the chipboard. Okay, and then you would have to come back through and kind of clean them up a little bit. What I have found works really well for me is I fold over one side. Starting at this line where the fold is, I am going to cut in ever so slightly. Okay, so you see I just took off this little tiny wedge off that corner to miter it. Okay, I'm going to flip it over, keep that folded in, flip it over, do the same thing on this end. Okay, turn it around again and do the same thing again. And again. When you do this, you want to put your scissors against the edge of your chipboard, move them in just a tiny bit, and then cut. Okay, so these two pieces are now mitered. We need to miter on these ends. So what I'm going to do is fold that side in, and then I'm just going to come from that corner and I'm going to miter out again. You don't need to be like super aggressive, like you don't need to miter it completely out, you know, where you've got a huge gap. You just need a tiny bit. Okay. And again, like so. So this one is ready to wrap. I'm going to set that aside. We're going to repeat this process with our other cover piece. So I'm going to fold it again, burnish that little crease down. Okay, fold that over again, burnish that down. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing again to miter. So just at that corner and out, turn it around, again at the corner and out. And then come back, fold in your mitered section, and get your other side. Okay, so those two pieces are ready to go. Now, this is where I end up using a combination of score tape and glue. I am going to take 1/4 inch score tape. As soon as I find the end, actually I think I've got another roll here. Yeah, let's finish off this other roll first. I'm going to run this around the outside edge on all 4 sides. Now, doing the tape around the edges like this is completely optional. You can use just glue when we go to wrap this and adhere these down. It's entirely up to you. I have just found, and this is partially from having some kind of nerve problems in this hand, I don't have to burnish this down as much or as hard if I use the combination of the tape and the glue. Okay, that's why I have continued to do it this way. So I'm going to prep this one as well. And you do want to burnish that down. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to get my glue opened up and ready to go. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the backing off of my tape. I'm going to take my glue and I'm going to run a line of glue. Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. Betcha this clogged on me again. Hold on. Okay, fix the glue. All right, so we took backing off here. We're going to run a line of glue along the edge of the chipboard. We're going to come up in this center section, and we don't need a ton. You don't want it seeping out all over the place. I'm going to take my bone folder, and I'm going to push my cardstock up along the edge of the chipboard. Okay, so I'm just going back and forth. I'm going to fold it over and burnish it down. I did have a little bit of glue come out on that end. I'm just going to clean that off. Okay. You can just keep going around like that. I like to do opposites and opposites. But like I said, that's just a personal preference. So again, we've got the backing off our tape. We're going to come down along there. Burnish it up, push it up against the side of that chipboard, and then over and down. Okay. And again. We're going to go down our side. And down. And again. And there we go. There's one piece wrapped and ready to go. We're going to do the exact same thing on this one. So glue along the edge of the chipboard, go up just below the tape, we'll squiggle in the middle, and then with your bone folder, push up, over and down. Okay. And again on the other side. chipboard, over and down. Okay. I am just getting glue everywhere today. And we'll do our other ends. Okay. And the last side. Okay. All right, so there's another cover. For our spine, we're going to do this just a little bit differently. So we're going to go ahead and fold and burnish on all four sides, just like we did before. Okay. And again. Okay. We're going to miter it just like we did before. So fold it in, miter out. And when you're mitering, you always want to cut away from it, from yourself. You don't want to try to do it like this because you'll end up cutting your corners off. Okay. I've watched people try to do it that way and it never works. I don't know, maybe it works for some people. I haven't seen it work very often. Okay. All right, and we're going to fold that in. And again. And again. Okay. The difference here is we are not wrapping these two pieces around. We are just wrapping the top and the bottom. Okay. So I'm going to do the same thing with my score tape. Even though this is a smaller piece, I don't have to burnish it quite as much if I just use glue. I still tend to keep doing it this way. It works for me, so I do it. Okay. Other than that, wrapping the top and the bottom of the spine is going to be exactly the same. Okay. Glue along the chipboard, push up, and then over and down. Okay. Along the chipboard, in the middle, up, over and down. Okay, now we're going to put this together. So you're going to take your spine, you're going to put it pretty side up. You're going to take your bone folder, and if you've got a type that this end is like super pointy, you're going to want to be really careful. What we're going to do is come along the edge of our chipboard, and we're just going to burnish. So you'll see, now you can see where there's a line. This side we haven't done yet, this side we just did. So you can see there's a line there. That's what you want. Okay, turn it around. Same thing on the other side. Okay, so there you go. So now that chipboard in the middle is very defined. Okay, I'm going to take my score tape again. I'm going to go along this outside edge. And again on this side. Okay, I'm going to grab one of my cover pieces. Now, when we attach this, you can just do it flat on your desk and, you know, kind of hold it, make sure you get it set in there right, or you can do it on your scoreboard. It's entirely up to you. If you don't trust that you can get it like even doing it flat on your desk, then use your scoreboard. I'm going to do it flat on this side. I'll use the scoreboard for the other side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the backing off my tape. And again, it's the same basic idea, that it's going to grab immediately so that your cover is not going to slide. Okay. Doing it flat on the desk, even with the scoreboard to a lesser extent. I'm going to start on top of my spine. Okay. I'm going to pull this over until it slides off the side, and I'm going to pull it over just a tiny bit, and then I'm just going to burnish that down. Okay. If we turn it over, that's what you've got. Okay. That's how you do it flat on your desk. You're just going to kind of guide it off the top. I use my finger down on the bottom just to make sure I'm lined up on the bottom, because if I cut my chipboard right, if I'm lined on the bottom, I'll be aligned on the top. Okay. Doing it with the scoreboard, what you would do is you would put your piece in here to the top. You're going to do the same thing again. You're going to take your backing off your score tape. You're going to do your glue. And in this case, and I may not have said this on the other side, you don't want to go up to the spine. You want to go just shy of the spine. And then doing this method, you can just use your scoreboard to help you line this up so it's nice and even. And then burnish it down. Okay. So there we go. The only other piece we need in here is going to be a reinforcement piece, but we'll do that when we do our hinge. Okay. So for now, the base of your book, your cover, is done. Okay. Next time we're going to reinforce our spine and we're going to do our hinge.